author. I talked to her briefly right before we got started. It's nice to hear. She's also been touched by suicide in her life, and as with a lot of folks that have that touched by suicide, it changes you. It changes your life. You are not the same person that you were prior to the event. Heather has decided to do something about that, and she's dedicated now her life to help educate folks. So without further ado,
I hope you all don't mind me reading. I can get emotional and off track, so this will keep me poignant. So the research data tells us that more than 38,000 people died by suicide in the United States in 2010, which is one person gone every 13.7 minutes. 90% of these people had a diagnosable and treatable mental illness. We've gathered here today to raise awareness, to decrease the stigma, and support the research that will help identify and treat people who are suffering from mental illness with the ultimate goal of lowering these numbers. These are the statistics, but we all know that behind every statistical data point, there's a human being that we loved, that had hopes and dreams. The human being that I stand for here today is my uncle, Doug Mills, who died by suicide some time ago when he was 26 on November 18th of 1977. He was a very adventurous young man, and he left North Carolina to work on the Alaskan pipeline. He was a lot of fun, but sadly he suffered from depression, and his demons were just too great to bear. His death, so long ago, still holds a lot of questions for me and my family, but in many ways it defines who I am today and what I've decided to do with my life. It also fuels my passion for suicide prevention and research. I stand here today also for my whole family, my mother, my father who loved him too, my grandparents, the woman that he left behind, his girlfriend, and all of his buddies. I stand here today so that another mother doesn't have to go to school and pull her child out of class and explain what suicide is and tell her young child that her uncle won't be coming back to play anymore. I stand here today so that no parent has to suffer the loss as so many of us have suffered. I also stand here today because I don't want anyone to feel ashamed for having a mental illness or seeking treatment. It's not a choice, and more often than not, it's treatable. And we're learning more and more how to treat it. We're learning more and more how to intervene successfully. We know that by removing the stigma opens the doors to treatment as well as prevention. And we have many community resources here in Frederick, both for people who are suffering from mental illness as well as survivors, such as the Way Station and the Frederick County Mental Health Association. And I encourage all of you to check out the resource table behind me and get involved with those organizations and talk to your loved ones about what support is out there for them. So decades after Doug's death, I became a suicide prevention specialist. 1 month after Hurricane Katrina struck, I flew south to support the New Orleans branch of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which was understandably understaffed, and the phone was ringing off the hook. A lot of the volunteers were missing, and so I trained some new volunteers how to answer all of those calls that were often related to either grief of losing a loved one, a home, a job, all the devastation. It was, talking about it today still chokes me up. The time I spent supporting people on all of the lifelines I've worked for has made sense for me. It means that my uncle's death has somehow helped other people. This is what we call meaning making in thanatology and grief work. I stand here today for all the people whose calls I've taken, for all of your family members, for every survivor. My choice, of course, would be to have my uncle back, to have the friends back that I've lost. But given the reality of the situation, this is how I chose to make meaning. As a thanatologist and as a human being who has been impacted by suicide, I know how the stigma surrounding a death can impact how well we adjust to life after loss. Community support and what we call meaning making, such as walking for awareness, raising funds for prevention and research, or listening compassionately to the person you meet today as they tell you their story. This is what helps us cope, this is what helps us survive, and this is what helps us even grow through our grief. The grief research shows that it is not time that heals, it's what we do with the time. That's what matters. So I look at this crowd and I don't see a bunch of numbers, I don't see statistics, I see a bunch of really nice human beings who've come here today to stand for each other's human beings. And I want to commend you and just say how you've touched me and how you're touching everybody and you're doing the right thing for being here. So I'll leave you with these words. May we all be happy. May we all know peace. And may we all be free from suffering. Thank you.